What up, everybody? Welcome to Tabletop Never Stop. Today we're doing another spoiler video, time about Qhorin Half Hand and Harma Dog's Head. Qhorin is NCU. We don't know his costs yet. He has an ability Sacrifice for the Cause. Once per game at the start of the round, target one enemy unit and then kill Qhorin. The enemy unit may not activate this round. So give Qhorin up, and one enemy unit doesn't get to activate. When we see enemy unit, that means it can be a combat unit or an NCU. Although generally, I think you're going to want to be targeting a combat unit. Not letting an enemy NCU activate is interesting. It stops any influence from happening, but a lot of the really interesting, powerful NCU abilities don't necessarily have to do with them activating. And of course, giving up your NCU activation to stop the enemy NCU activation doesn't really make any sense. So I think you're going to be wanting to use this to turn off enemy combat units, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do here. One of the first things that popped into my head was imagine a game of Fire and Blood where your commander's in trouble. Even if it's in the middle of the game and you're going to lose out on like one or two turns of using Qhorin, throwing him away to stop an enemy from killing your commander could be really powerful. And of course, the ideal situation is definitely when you get to round 6, you only have 2 or 3 units left, and so does the enemy, and you give up on Qhorin and you just turn one off. That could potentially be totally devastating and during the end game. I would say it's a little unclear from the card text if this means the enemy just can't be activated in the sense that you put an activation token on it, or if it can still be activated off the tactics board. I kind of think that they probably will be able to be activated off the tactics board, but I feel like the keywords used are a little confusing. So seeing some new NCUs is exciting, and Qhorin is definitely very interesting here in the idea that he can be added into like an already defensive army and prevent a heavy hitter from coming in. Also, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect a combat attachment version of him too. So we'll look forward to that in the future. Maybe we won't get him, but we certainly see him in the field fighting enemies. So I think we can expect that. And now that we've talked about some Night's Watch, let's move on to Harma Dog's Head. This is actually a commander for the Free Folk. She has Order, Superior Flanking. When a friendly unit within long range attacks an enemy in the flank or rear before attack dice are rolled, attacker rolls +3 attack dice and the defender becomes vulnerable. She also has Vanguard Commander. When you claim the maneuver spot, return one Commander Tactics card from your discard pile to your hand. Okay, so let's talk about Vanguard Commander first. Now, obviously, we haven't seen the Tactics cards, so we don't really know how good this is. But of course, the cards don't do nothing. Obviously, they do something, and the ability to use them over and over again sounds pretty good. I also just like the idea of encouraging the enemy to deny you, right? So they'll know that you can do this, and so they might decide to claim maneuver before you can do that. And anytime you force the enemy to take a spot on the tactics board to stop you from taking a spot on the tactics board, I mean that's usually a pretty good thing. They're claiming maneuver, that means they're leaving an attack open, even though the Free Folk, maybe don't benefit from it as much as other armies because their attacks aren't as good. And there's always giants, and if you're snatching an attack, then they aren't getting it. So without even seeing the tactics cards, this is a pretty interesting ability. I like the kind of control element of it. The Order, Superior Flanking, I like a lot too. It works on anyone within long range, and that's great, especially since you might not want to be running Harma up to attack enemies as she's your commander. So that long range bubble is pretty darn big. And this isn't the easiest thing in the world to use, but +3 dice and vulnerable is excellent for Free Folk. I don't have a lot of access to tokens. 3 more dice is pretty good, and there's actually quite a bit of synergy. This would be the part normally where I would complain about how Free Folk aren't good, but I'm aware that they won Adepticon, so I'm going to leave that alone. And instead of saying, oh, this is the thing that might actually, this is a tool that actually will work, we'll call it a synergy. Obviously, Val can help you move units up to get flanks, and of course the Free Folk also has Swift Advance, which can allow you to do that. And then when you consider, a swarm style army will have more activations. This is a thing you can do kind of towards the end. If the enemy comes in and engage one of your units, you can come back and probably hit them in the flank, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it, especially if they are, let's say they engage a unit but don't kill it, and then you can move up with just using those cheap Free Folk raiders. If they're attacking a unit that they're flanking a unit that's already engaged. They're hitting on threes and they're rolling 9 dice. All of a sudden, this crappy 3-point free folk unit is suddenly pretty dangerous. So, used correctly, Harma can be pretty interesting commander. Let's switch over to a nerdy in the books argument here, but in the books, Harma is running around in a chariot. I do hope we get to see that eventually. I think the free folk could probably really benefit from some sort of cavalry unit, just because one of the things that the free folk generally want is to have multiple units engaged, and that having a cavalry unit can be really helpful in that sense, since they can get in there. Even if they're kind of far away to begin with, all of a sudden you can move the cavalry in, and now you got all your tactics cards are turned on. Your raiders can get the benefit of having an enemy being engaged. So that's a thing I'd like to see in the future. But that was Qhorin and Harma. So it's been a little bit quiet, but now we had some more leaks. So if anything else comes out, I'll definitely make another video. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and we'll see you soon.